Clint Eastwood. And I mean, the man is like, you go to the movies to see a Clint Eastwood film. Like, I think if someone just kind of plays it surface of like, oh, I'm gonna be funny and I'm gonna be loud and da 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 da, but then you don't get that underneath, then yeah, I think you're playing a stereotype.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Hassiem Muhammad, and you are listening to The Actor's Instrument, where we discuss the qualities that you need to stand out in the entertainment industry. Before we dive into this week's guest, I just want to share a message I got from one of our listeners, Marshall, who was actually a guest on season 1. That was one of our streaming only episodes before we were on YouTube. And Marshall hit me up to say that she was listening to one of our recent episodes with Anna E. Puig and said that she loved it, and oddly enough had just taken a class where they worked on looking at scenes for 15 minutes and then performing, and it blew her mind. If you listen to the episode with Anna, you'll know that Anna said that as a series regular on TV, she never gets totally off book for any auditions. So Marshall heard that, connected it to the class that she was taking, and said that she just got an audition. This was yesterday, and she's going to try to incorporate that strategy of not doing a lot of preparation and just diving into it. I think that's awesome. And guys, if you're listening and you take something away from one of our guests and you end up going and trying it out on your own, please share it with me. Share what you tried and if it worked and who you learned it from our show. All right, some actors just have that it factor, the kind of folks who you just can't keep your eyes off of and who captivate you in everything they do and who seemingly have one moment in their career that just catapults them to another level. Today, I'm grateful to be joined by one of those actors. Adrienne C. is known for her roles in Orange is the New Black, Juror #2, Pretty Hard Cases, Broadway's The Blood Quilt, and coming off Broadway, My First Ex-Husband. Adrienne, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Hassiem. So glad to be here.
Alrighty, so I want to talk about this show, My First
Okay.
Ex-Husband, Joy Behar's show. Can you tell us a little bit about the play and your role in it?
Yeah, so it's, as you said, my first ex-husband, and it is a compilation of stories from women who have spoken candidly about their first husbands, their first marriages, and what led to them becoming their ex-husbands. And it's funny, it's raw, it's very um to the point, matter of fact, very poignant. Each of the stories, not only are they remarkable and humorous and a bit heartbreaking and sad, but the resiliency of these women, um, the two stories and the two women that I will portray, what struck me about them was their undying need to want to make it work in spite of all the signs and the red flags and, the things. If I was their girlfriend, I'd be like, "Girl, you need to I don't know about him." But they stuck with it until it was just inevitable that, they had to go. And how it empowered them to move forward and how they ended up winning in the end. It's and you're like, all this in one in each of these women's stories, and yeah, it's true. And so I'm looking forward to working with Joy Behar, Susie Essman, and Tova Feldshuh, who are in the first cycle of these stories. They're gonna be running, I think, for a couple of months. But the four of us will be in the first cycle until February 23rd.
Dope, dope. I'm also excited. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, me too. This is the first time. I mean, the only thing that kind of is sort of similar to it was years ago when I was living in Atlanta. I participated in Eve Ensler's The Vagina Monologues, and it was, as you know, it's a compilation of stories from women,
Yeah.
um, on the topic of their vaginas. But you think like, oh, what is that about? But when you hear these stories, it's everything from, yeah, sexual experiences to gender mutilation, and it's all empowering, and very eye-opening, and I think this is what that is too. It's all empowering, very eye-opening, like I said, at moments where there's humor, there's also heartbreak. It's so relatable. I think that's what drives the humor in these pieces, quite honestly, is the relatability. that I think a lot of people, whether you've been married before or you've been in a long-term relationship or you just dated somebody for a few weeks and you was like, "Nah, this ain't working." I think a lot of people are gonna find the relatability in these, stories.
Sure. Okay, now help me understand. There's a rotating cast, so
Mhm.
you are not going to be in the show for the duration of however long the production lasts.
Neither myself, Tova, Susie, or Joy, and I think that's what also makes it interesting is because and what adds to the relatability of it is that it could come out of anyone, and you're gonna
Um,
and there's gonna be their interpretation of it. It's gonna be my interpretation of these women in the stories that I will tell, and then someone else will come along and give their
yeah.
interpretation. But I think that's what's interesting about it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be someone else's interpretation, but yet the story is still gonna ring true, and you're still gonna find that humor and that
Mhm.
heartwarming, essence of it.
That's so fascinating and kind of brilliant,
Mhm.
you know?
I know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of theater that's innovative, not just, like, for the sake of being innovative. You can kinda tell when people are just doing stuff to be special, but, when you talk about a universal story, how else to show that it's universal than having a new cast tell the story,
Exactly.
you know? So, because a lot of
Exactly.
especially with new plays, there are actors who, like, put their stamp on it, and people feel like, "Oh, I can never see anybody else doing this." And so, although I don't necessarily love that, it's like, "Oh, well, I guess that means your job has, an end date that's maybe closer than usual," but I think it's really cool that they are taking the opportunity to get different voices on top of the
Mhm.
text. Because when I read it was a rotating cast, I was like, "Oh, are they all bringing, like, their own stories, and is that why it's changing?" But
Mm.
but it sounds like, no, it's the script is set, and they're just having new voices on it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and so we'll see, right? And it also, I think, gives the audience a chance to come back if they choose to and hear it from someone else's voice and perspective, and see how it resonates with them.
That's so cool, that's so cool.
It's almost like you know, uh, sometimes when you watch a movie over and over again, you watch it the first time and you love it, which obviously brings you back to watching it again and again and again. And then, but with each time, you capture something new and different that you may not have picked up on from the first time. And I would suspect, and I'm interested to see if maybe hearing it from a new voice, you'll hear things that maybe you didn't hear or capture things that you maybe didn't capture the first time when you saw it, with someone else doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome, I really can't wait. Now, I was looking over, your credits, and I spoke to you before. I saw you in the Blood Quilt at Lincoln Center. By the way, congratulations. S
Thank you.
So good, and I'm not just saying that. I brought my wife to see it, and we were both just, like, really blown away at the depth. It certainly helps when you have a playwright like Katori Hall behind it, um, but really just the relationships were so sticky,
Mhm.
the stakes couldn't be any higher, and it was intimate. It was really I mean, you guys the sets didn't change. I mean, there's some minor things here and there, and so you were kind of open to this large space, but it was very intimate and just really well done.
Yeah, I loved everything about the set, the cast, the crew was amazing, it kinda took me back to, um although, yes, it was this amazingly professionally done production, but so many aspects of it I feel were like it felt like we were, high school, college, just,
Yeah.
production trying to figure it out because the space was so small and so intimate and you can
Mhm.
see every single thing,
Yeah.
it was like, "How are we gonna hide this?" And we were just like, we just it's gonna be a sleight of the hand kinda sorta. Uh, but but yeah, I love that. I love that because what definitely rang true in that show were those relationships with the sisters. And I mean, Crystal and Susan and Lauren, I mean, those are some remarkable talents and I got a chance to work with them, and it was and I'll tell you a little secret, or not a little secret, but, um, this was like a 360 or, full maybe 180, I don't know what they say, but Crystal Dickinson, who played my elder sister, Clementine, in the show, she actually is, a big sister and a mentor to me, and she's a
Oh, that's
huge
dope.
part as to why I'm a professional actor today. I met her almost 20 years ago in Atlanta. I was an intern on a show that she was doing at, Synchronicity Theater, and at the time, there weren't a lot of Black actresses that I could personally look to say, like, "How did you become a professional actor?" She was, not only acting professionally, but she was also a professor at Spelman College in their theater department, and so I just was sitting up under her like, "Teach me," and I had come to a point in my, career I was at a crossroads roads in the from the professional world of marketing and advertising to I really wanted to be in theater. And I was like, I don't know how to make this happen. I don't know what to do. And and she always reminds me about how I came into her office at Spelman, sitting on her couch crying because I was trying to figure out how to, go from a community actor to a professional actor as she had done. And she just said, you just gotta go. You just gotta go to New York. I think you can really make it happen if you try. And so she's, like I said, been a big inspiration to me and is a mammoth of a talent. And so to be able to be, almost 20 years into my career and on a stage with her, it was a gift every night. It was a I can't say it or describe it any other way, but it was a true gift.
No, and this all makes sense because I could see it. Like, you could feel, like I said, the relationships were so deep and sticky, and I felt like I was watching siblings, and it reminded me of I've come from a really big family. I have
Mm.
6 sisters myself.
Oh, wow.
Um, so seeing this group of Black women up on stage, and I'm from South Carolina, and
Mm.
this show takes place off the coast of Georgia, so it's like
Mhm.
for me, it was just like all of the things, and it was
All up in your backyard.
yes, very much so. All in my backyard with my grass.
Yeah. Mine
Uh,
too. I grew up in Georgia, and my family, we would go down to Jekyll Island and St. Simons and Hilton Head, and
Yep.
I even went on that Gullah Geechee tour when I was a kid, so there was a lot of memories and a lot of familiarity,
Yeah.
with the culture and the script and the history.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a coming home in a lot of ways for me, and I was just so grateful to be able to premiere that show in New York and to with that cast and at Lincoln Center. I've always dreamt of doing a show at Lincoln Center, and so it was just a lot of, like, dreams coming true.
That's really amazing. Now, your recent projects, Blood Quilt, My First Ex-Husband, you've been in your theater bag lately.
Yes.
But, when looking at your credits and kinda reading up on you, I saw that, you started as you said, you started in the theater, you were in Atlanta, but it seems like a big stretch of your career has been really focused on camera work.
Yeah.
And it seems like that was a stretch where you were, at least from the outside, appears to be working really consistently for, like, a decade straight.
Yeah.
This move to theater, is that coincidence? Is that intentional? Um, is it just what kind of you're interested in at this moment? How much control do you even have over that, you know?
You know, I never, um and I don't know if this is, to the detriment or what, but I've always believed in being a part of the journey, the joy is in the journey, not the destination, and my whole goal was to just be a professionally working artist. Um, a lot of people don't know, but my real actual professional start was in voiceovers. Um, I started doing animation and commercials in the voiceover world, which I still do. Um, but, because, as as an artist, look, if they will hire you and it's a paycheck and it's a good paycheck, you gonna go do it,
Okay.
Uh, theater was always and has always been the thing that grounds me. I call it my gym. It's the place where I feel I can explore and be as creative and be, and run into the most interesting of stories and characters that sometimes, you know, television and film may not be willing to take those chances on. I was just detailing to someone, um, my first stage play was Kirsten Greenidge's Milk Like Sugar, where I was playing this 17-year-old, Christian fanatic who just wanted to have friends. Me all the while, she had a very chaotic home. And all of the friends that all the girls she was trying to befriend wanted to be teenage moms. To I played an angel in Daniel Beatty's Tearing Down the Walls, and then another angel in Ethel Sings, the story of Ethel Rosenberg and how her and her husband were um, caught as communists and later executed. Yeah, for colored girls at the public theater and the Blood Quilt at Lincoln Center. I've always tried to keep theater in my arsenal. There was even in the busiest point of my TV career, I would always try to find a play, that I could find space for, because it like I said, it always grounded me. It always, it sort of welcomed me back to the world of artistry,
Yeah. Yeah.
because, in TV film, you can film something and you can mess it up and be like, "Oh, stop, 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 stop. Let me go back. Let me go back. Let me go. Let
Yep.
me,
Yep.
the
Yep.
things we do when we mess up in TV
Uh-huh.
film. But in theater, it's like live, it's right there. It's how do you keep that tennis ball, that tennis match, going with not only the
Yeah.
people on the stage, but the biggest gift of all, the audience.
Yeah.
I love live performance. There's nothing like it. And I mean, it was the thing and I tell this story. The first play I ever did, I was a little community theater. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and there was this little community theater that my mom and dad put all 3 of my siblings and I in, and, the first play we did was the best Christmas pageant ever, and I didn't have any lines. I was just a little angel. I probably said, like, maybe some of the chorus lines, at most, but I got to watch the audience from the stage every night that we did that show, and just the sheer joy and attentiveness and excitement from the audience made me think, "Wow, this is what we can do to people. I wanna do this for the rest of my life." And so, there will always be I pray that there will always be a stage for me to perform on in my career. I love TV and film. If theater could meet and have the same paycheck as TV and film, I probably would do that. I will say, as I'm getting older, and I won't give away my age, it does get a little bit harder on the body, night after night. And so your body does take a toll, and you have to, and as I'm learning, you have to take care of it, and you have to exercise, and you have to eat right, and you have to give yourself the amount of rest, which is why I do call it my gym, because it really makes me not just focus on the characters that I'm creating in the story every night, but it really makes me have to focus on taking care of my vessel.
Mm. Mm. Say that. You're reminding me, I've seen a lot of clips of Denzel Washington speaking lately about the importance of theater, and people are asking for acting advice. And the first thing that he says is, you need to do theater. You must do theater. And he himself, that's what he does. I mean, I saw him in The Iceman Cometh on Broadway when I was a senior in college. And now, he's about to do Othello, and they did Macbeth. It was on film, but it was like they filmed the play. Um, so yeah, the importance of theater. I love you saying that that's your gym, and I love that you actively seek it out. Now, speaking on the different roles that you have been able to play throughout your career, I feel like there's a bit of a trend in kind of the ethos that these characters carry. You have Cindy from Orange Is the New Black, you got Geo from Blood Quilt, Yolanda from Juror Number Two, and they have a similar thing about them. You know what I'm saying? Um, do you ever feel like you've been placed in a box? I feel like actors get fearful of being typecast. Is that something that has crossed your mind at all?
Well, yes, let me before I answer that fully, I'm curious of what you think the similarity is in these characters.
No nonsense, abrasive,
Mhm.
which is funny because this is our first time meeting, but you seem so kind. Like when Gio comes in the room, it's like, here we go. Like all of these characters are gonna take you for a ride. They've got an
Yeah.
attitude, they speak their mind, they're strong. Um, yeah, those are some of the things that I've noticed in these characters, and you do it so well.
Mhm.
Um, to me, it's not a negative thing. I'm more so just asking from the perspective again of like I've spoken with, and I told you I work in schools a lot, and I've heard kids ask me about like being typecast and being concerned about being typecast. And so, as somebody who has done a particular thing so well and continues to get them work, is that something that concerns you at all?
Yes, so as I was saying, it does, which is why I've always tried to be careful about the roles that I go after, the ones that choose me. Um, because oftentimes I think as a Black woman, we can get put into that loud, brassy, abrasive, head rolling, snapping eye, pop, pop,
Uh-huh.
pop, 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 kind of thing. And I always, try to, if that's how they're writing them, I try to, find the humanity in them. I try to find what is that unique spark that, you won't just see them as that head rolling, eye snapping, mouth popping, Black woman, but what really is at the heart of her. What really causes that, or you just how to humanize her. And I think with Geo, you learn that she has enormous amount of trauma, that all of that, abrasiveness and humor and sort of unapologetic, no nonsensical ways come from. And with Black Cindy, trauma as well, but, it's because it's from family. It's from not fully being able to be herself, not fully being able to take responsibility of her mistakes, and that's what I loved about, so now we're talking about a TV character and a film and a theater character, where in TV, I was always curious with Cindy, like, what was her story? Like, what's the underneath of that all? Why is she, so funny and, yeah, speaks her mind, but yet, certain things could trigger her, um, and the beautiful thing about TV is, especially when you get to be on a series for as long as Orange ran, every episode, every season, you sort of peel back that layer and you
Right.
discover more and you discover why. In film and in theater, the arc is written for you and you have to rediscover it every night. You have to deepen it every single time, especially in theater. And so, I feel like even with Geo, I was discovering her up until the very end. I was, finding different ways to understand her humor, to understand her trauma, to understand, you know, why it was so important, why certain things she held on so important and so, held on so closely to, and other things as she realizes to at the end, she needs to let go of in order to heal. So I try to find characters that, wrestle with that challenge. I think if someone just kind of plays it surface of like, oh, I'm gonna be funny and I'm gonna be loud and da 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 da, but then you don't get that underneath, then yeah, I think you're playing a stereotype. But if you can bring something more to them and the audience walks away understanding where that comes from, then I think you've created something unique with that character.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. And I love that you kind of come at it from two directions where on one hand, you're like, first and foremost, you are careful about the roles that you go after or that, you decide to say yes to. And then on the other hand, for the ones you do say yes to, you have this process of humanizing these characters and making sure that they have some depth to them. And you definitely feel that, especially with Gio, as you said, whenever the audience discovers the trauma that she went through. And it almost makes it more tragic,
Mhm.
because she comes in as this character who appears to be just invincible.
Mm.
And she's a literal police officer and carries a firearm. Like she's literally like invincible. And then you discover a bit more about her and it just totally flips it on its head.
Yeah, this one, a couple of times this happened during the course of the run, but I remember this one gentleman in particular, who caught me after the show, and he was like, he was, giving me praises, which, I appreciate. And sometimes it's
Mhm.
hard for me, I will admit to take, compliments just because I feel like I'm always working on something and,
Sure.
whatever. But he was giving me compliments and he was like, I didn't like you. I didn't want to like you.
Hmm.
And I think that was the first time an audience member had been that honest with me
Mhm.
about my character and Gio, because everyone else was like, "Oh, Gio's so funny, and she
Yeah.
this, and oh, you broke my heart, and girl, you did that, you did that." But he was like, "I didn't like you, and I didn't want to like you in the beginning." And I said, "Why? Why?" I get that, she said some things that are a little off, but I mean, but is she just unlikable? And he was like, "Yeah, because," he explained to me, how she came off in the beginning, which from that perspective, I was like, "I get it." He was like, "You said you were just going off on your little sister and you just weren't hearing her and this and that. But then when you got into telling us about your trauma and the abuse and then I understood it all and my heart bled for you." And I was like, "Ah." And even with that, like, that informed me because it informed me on how the audience was hearing her come across. And so as I continued to discover her every night, I actually went in more on like, "Oh, if he didn't like me," and then I want the audience to hate me in the beginning. I want them to not only find me funny, but like really be like, "Oh, she is just too much." And then boom, you get it.
Yeah, you get to go on that journey with her. It's a
Yeah,
wild ride.
yeah, and that actually fed me,
Mm.
it gave me something to really work on every night.
I love that. I love that. Now, I mentioned earlier, it appears as if you've been working very consistently since 2013. Orange is the New Black kind of looks like that was your breakout role. Do you
Mm.
feel like your career has had that consistency? Do you feel like it was like, boom, this one role and now snowball effect, we're going, going, going? Or is there more than meets the eye?
I would say it's felt steady. I think when I was in the midst of Orange, there were opportunities flying left and right, and some of them I could take, some of them I couldn't take because either it was conflicting with my film schedule with, Orange
Mhm.
or contractually, and that's one of the things as an artist you have to look at when you sign on to be a series regular on a show is, your time becomes theirs and they have first right of refusal over your schedule. And so they can say yay or nay, if you want to take a project. I think now, some artists are being a little bit more vocal about that truth. Um, and I think if I ever did a teaching artist class on just the business, I think a lot of students need to, we can focus all day on the technique of acting, but I think in order for artists to understand how to become a professional artist, you have to give credence to the um the business of being an artist and you being a product. So I digress then to say, I feel like it's been steady. Right after I did Orange, I went right into doing For Colored Girls, and that ran, oh my god, I felt like it ran forever. And then once that was done, I went off to Canada and filmed, Pretty Hard Cases for about 3 years, and that was in the middle of the pandemic. I never thought I would be working as much as I did through a pandemic, but thank God, I was. And then once that show ended, I jumped back into theater, and I don't know if you're familiar with Marcus, Gardley, but I did the Black Odyssey at, CSC over, on 13th Street, and a classic stage for those that don't know CSC. Um,
Classic stage company.
Classic Stage Company, shout out. So yeah, I feel like it's been this steady, whether it's a theater or I'm doing a film or I'm doing a television show, I just try to keep steady.
Mm.
I think that's for me, that is the spot. I don't want to be so incredibly busy that I'm missing out on life and family and friends and loved ones, but I don't wanna be so not busy that I'm hanging out with him too much.
Right, right. Okay,
I
because
would say, I'd be like, "This reunion is great, but,
got to get to work.
gotta
Um,
get to work." So, I think the steady is a good spot to be in.
Heard, and that's great. I mean, I love hearing this perspective because I think it's true. Well, first of all, it's true. That is been your journey. I think it's easy for us to fall into this pit of despair as actors. It's hard. And we don't have to sit here and talk about how hard it is to be an actor and how hard it is to maintain some kind of consistency in this business. We all know that that's the truth. And I just love hearing that your story, it gives us some hope and something to look forward to of saying like, no, I can have a career in this business. I can work steadily in consistency. And it may be by piecing together a film job here, voiceover here, theater contract there, you know what I'm saying, to create that consistency, but it
Mhm.
is possible. I think that gives us some hope. So I love hearing that part of your story. Now, another recent project you've worked on, Juror number two,
Mm.
um, which is quite a hit right now on Max. The thing that fascinates me about this film, if people haven't seen it yet, is I feel like we're living in this age of everything is just IP driven. Everything is a remake or it's this based off of a book or you know what I'm saying? And this original film is doing so well. And it seems to have broken through the noise.
Mhm.
Curious if you could speak on that aspect of the thing, like, is that something that's important to you in terms of, working on an original story? Do you not care? Do you feel like, "Oh, no, maybe it's not as big of a deal as it feels in the business?" What's your perspective on that?
Well, it's interesting because digital media or streaming media, was something that I feel, sort of indirectly a part of, creating the craze for it in a way,
That's right, because Orange was
when
one of the first.
one
It's
of
like
the
the
first,
first.
and I
Yeah.
and I literally, remember the conversation that I had with my agent when she brought me the audition for it, and she was like, "It's gonna be on it's a web series." It's what she said. And I was like, "A web series? Is this what my career has come to? I'm a web series?" I was like, "Is it gonna be on YouTube? Is it gonna be on" and she was like, "No, it's Netflix." I was like, "Netflix?" I was like, "The red envelope people?" Like,
It's gonna be in the mailbox?
it's going what? It's going what? And I was just literally was like, "What is going" like, trying to understand what she was talking about. Um, and now it's like everybody watches things on streaming media. I mean, so much to the point that these studio networks, Disney, MGM, Paramount, all of them took back all their licensing from Netflix because they realized how much money was to be made, but then also how much money they could save from streaming media. So, and I think there's a lot of politics with juror number 2 behind the scenes that I have no knowledge of, you know, but I think, there was this part of them because I feel like and they've said this, so I'll say what they've said, to be safe. I think at one point they did say they always planned for it to be on streaming. I don't think they necessarily planned for it to have this big theatrical release in the movie
Yeah, yeah.
theaters and, things like that, but upon seeing the finished product, they were like, "Wow, this is a really good film. I think we should try it in the movie theaters." But then also, it's like Clint Eastwood, and I mean, the man is like, you go to the movies to see a Clint Eastwood film. Like we were even filming the movie in Savannah, and we would have movie nights, at the theater as a cast and a crew that either he or Nicholas Holt, our wonderful leader of the film, would get us the movie nights, because it's like it's just and we would watch Cry Macho. I mean, it was like you felt like you were just kind of going back to the old school, like how you used to go to the theater, the movie theater, and watch films. So I think Warner Brothers, they always saw it as a streaming platform or on the streaming platform. But like I said, when they saw how undeniably great that film was, they gave it a chance in the movie theaters. And even in the movie theaters, not only in America, but abroad. Like people in France were like, I was there was like a surge in my Instagram account of people following me from
Oh,
France.
really?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
And they were like, "We loved you in Juror Number 2." And I was like, "Wow." So it
That's sick.
I think it's a testament to the institution that Clint Eastwood is and the type of films that he makes. He doesn't just like, you know, pick anything off the shelf and just makes it. Like he really curates
Yeah.
um the story, the cast, the environment, and everything. And
Yeah.
it's so obvious in this film.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
No, it's really fantastic. I actually rewatched it. So I was watching it and then I was out of town and I got home and I told my wife, I was like, "Yo, I think you really like this movie." And so we turn it on and she's like, "But you've already," because it shows you like where you were last on the thing.
Uh-huh.
She's like, "You're," I was like, "It's fine. Started from the beginning." Um, it's
Just watch it. It's great. It's great.
it's also one of those movies, I mean, Clint Eastwood, so yeah, give it a theatrical release. But to be honest, I liked watching it at home. It's an intimate film,
Yeah.
and I maybe it's just because 'cause I'm trained to watch, like, legal dramas now on TV. You have
Mm.
a bajillion of them. You got Suits and Bull and all these shows that Lincoln Lawyer that we watch at home, and it kinda felt like that because the majority of the film takes place in a courthouse, so I don't know,
Mhm.
it seemed to fit right. I'm glad that the film is getting the positive, feedback that it's getting. Clint Eastwood
Mhm.
is a legend, and that's so awesome that you had the opportunity to work with him. Um,
Yeah, I still, I'm like, I worked with him.
yeah, and that's probably why, I asked about it being an original story, and it's like, well, duh, like, Clint don't wanna remake nothing,
No.
He's an
There
OG,
there was there was this Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but if you I'm a huge Alfred Hitchcock lover. I used to watch the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. I watched, all his films, all of it. And it was in his Alfred Hitchcock Hour where he had, like the little short story horrors. Oh, you got to get into the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. Look it up, get into it. But there was a story, and I was actually trying to see because my castmates and I are still on a thread, and we are always like texting each other stuff. And someone brought it up that there was this Alfred Hitchcock um short short story on the Alfred Hitchcock Hour that kind of mm, I mean, it was obviously more morbid, because it was Alfred Hitchcock, but it was a similar kind of scenario where, it was a normal day in the town and this young woman ends up accidentally dying, and the person is trying to that accidentally killed her, no, not trying to implicate himself, but then the person that they thought did it, he's trying to work to get him off too. But in this case, obviously the audience sees very early on that he committed the murder. Um, but it's like it's just that good. It's that ooh, and like, it's always great because as being an actor, um, and you've worked on enough projects, sometimes when you look at things, you look at it with the behind the scenes vantage point.
Yep, yep,
It's like it's
yep.
hard to just kinda, like, watch a story and appreciate it as a story, like, you see the hair, the makeup, the wardrobe, the behind the scenes editing, you see that, oh, you see how they set it up so the camera could be here and film, like, you this it's just hard, right? But this film, you kind of suspend all that because they throw certain things at you as an audience member that you just feel like, "I can watch this as an audience person and not as even me, the person who filmed it."
Yeah, right, right.
I was like, oh, because obviously there were parts of the film that I didn't witness being filmed, so it was my first time seeing it, and so I was like, "Huh." Like, I was literally, like, with my hand to my mouth, like, "Huh."
Yeah. No, I love films like that. I love stories that are like that. I love, like, the psychological thriller aspect where you're kind of, like, discovering it as it goes, and it just keeps roping you in. Um,
Yeah, like that scene with Kiefer Sutherland, it still haunts me. It still haunts me. I was like, he
Ace.
basically admitted it, and he basically told him how to not say anything. I was like,
No, he was good.
wow.
My man was smooth with it. He was smooth with it. Um, Adrienne, we're coming up on time. I've got one more question for you.
Yes.
Maybe the most important question, which is reflecting on your career and your journey. What would you say is the defining quality that you bring to the table as a storyteller? What is it that sets you apart?
Mm. I think, um, and this is something that I always tell artists, when they are starting out in the business or want advice from me, and that is to I mean, you already have to have a level of confidence in yourself, right? But I think, the biggest gift that I give myself, and that was what my all my teachers taught me, was to trust my instincts. I think so many times you can get into this business and you can read a script and, you can kind of understand a character's oeuvre, so to speak, and you can play it like that. And you just kind of play it like that and you don't learn to trust your instincts. And what I love about trusting your instincts and about my teachers teaching me that is that that will inevitably lead you to bring something unique to that character because, everyone's instincts are different. And so I just try to, be kind, not only to the people that I'm working with and to the character that I'm portraying, and to be compassionate to the story and the voices that I'm giving to them, but I try to trust my instincts and I try not to question it. Because there's so many times, and I don't know, if you were in school, right? You were in your classes and you put your scene up in front of your professor and you got the feedback, from the teacher and from the class and whatever. And sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't do you can get so much into your head that you learn not to just trust the voice and the heart and the art that's in you. And I always appreciate my teachers encouraging me to just, silence everything outside and not just go with what I think they would want me to do or what the audience might want me to do or what the audience might want to see, but like what are my instincts telling me?
Mm, mm. Oh boy, I have so many thoughts on that, but we're not going to go any further. That's Oh, that's great, and it's something that I needed to hear, and I appreciate you sharing that part of you with
Mhm.
us. Um, Adrienne, thank you so much. I know you are incredibly busy. I know you had an interview earlier today, and I know things are moving
Yeah.
really fast for you, so really appreciate you carving out some time to chat with us.
Thank you f as well. I appreciated this time.
Absolutely, absolutely. To our listeners, if you're in New York, go see My First Ex-Husband off Broadway, and wherever else you are, make sure to check out Juror #2 on Max. It's streaming. One of the original streamers, isn't it? So be sure to check it out. Adrienne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's conversation with Adrienne, then you'll love the recent episode I did with Goosebumps Anna E. Puig. So be sure to go and check that out. Thank you so much for tapping into this episode of The Actors Instruments. Big thanks to our co-producers over at Red Letter Entertainment. We'll be back next Tuesday. Till next time, y'all. Peace.